decriminalization for you, why is that just not
Well,
enough?
decriminalization is what we have now. We're not criminals anymore. I can walk around the street with this plant and I can say it's mine, and I'm allowed to have it.
Mark, you've advocated for this for how many years?
Since 1990. I'm pretty well full-time.
And you got arrested when?
I've been arrested 10 times and jailed 8 times.
So you've got a record because it's
I have 22 convictions for marijuana.
And you lost your job?
No. I've worked for myself since I was...
Well, somebody said you'd lost your job.
No. I've lost all my assets for them. The police, when they raid you, they take everything. And you know, on a couple of those raids, when they have at least almost $500,000 worth of my stuff, I was never even charged with anything. As it turns out, they didn't ever charge me for it, but they don't give your stuff back, you know? And those are one of the many injustices that will stop now. That's going to be immediately questioned and repudiated in the court.
You haven't held assets.
Because to possess marijuana or anything to do with marijuana, marijuana is not an illegal product. It's no longer illegally cultivated. It's not illegally sold. It's like tomatoes and lettuce. There's no sanction on the sale of tomatoes, and tomatoes are legal to possess, and they're also legal to sell. And that's exactly what happened in the Superior Court. They took that word out of criminal law. And that's what I'm here to emphasize, is this could be a remarkable opportunity if Ontarians move quickly enough. And we have a summer coming, and it's a wonderful opportunity. That's when people do a lot of travel in the Northern Hemisphere. And I just think that the ultimate ace in the hole for Toronto is, yes, some people have exaggerated the SARS scare, did not come, that's ridiculous. But marijuana, that means fun times, parties, a cool city, an enlightened state of mind. And believe me, marijuana people don't create problems like alcohol people. You want those kind of tourists. They're laughing and having a good time and eating a whole lot in Toronto restaurants. I mean, come on, that's precisely what really needs that.
Why not do it in front of City Hall then? Why are you trying to provoke the police?
Because City Hall is a proactive place where we would go and make suggestions and recommendations as to how you can deal with it. But what we need first is the acknowledgement. Yes, I need them to say marijuana is legal. We understand that. And then I can say, good. Then you should draw up a set of rules by which everybody understands how this new commerce can be governed, right? Which is a very wise thing to do, because then everybody can have input. So instead of saying marijuana is wrong and it should be illegal, then you can say, well, how will we most effectively do that in a market clear of confusion? So you get more tourists, you get more consumption, you get PST, GST, income taxes, you get safety inspections inside homes. And now, this is the only jurisdiction that can do that. So you can't pass bylaws at a municipal level on an illegal product. You can't regulate an illegal product. So they're never able to do that. But now it's not illegal. So the municipality can take a very strong role in effectively regulating it. If it's not effective, people won't obey it. And you have to convince the marijuana people that you're doing it in their interest, as well as everyone else's. And when everybody's on side, it'll work. Right, and so now marijuana people can really do whatever they want. So for 5 months, I'm asking them to demonstrate and lobby about all the potential that exists from this situation. And it's clear that I think the police probably won't take anybody's pot because it's pretty petty when it gets down to it, and they don't need the grief. I'm convinced no police officer wants some teenager or anybody muttering under his breath and dissing him and having this bad experience for the rest of his life over something that's legal and something that is not a source of harm. The most brilliant people in the world smoke marijuana. Ask Paul McCartney.
And the federal government, the decriminalization slate that they've got on the table right now, what's your feeling about that?
Well, that's a totally regressive thing. That is recriminalization. We are right now in Ontario, everyone who stands on soil in Ontario is not a criminal for having marijuana. What the Parliament is proposing is regressive in every sense. At least 200,000 people in British Columbia alone will be vulnerable to a 14-year offense, something greater than a conspiracy to commit terrorism, which is 10 years in the criminal code, for growing 50 or more plants. I can grow 50 plants in my bathroom, and most people, everybody grows more than 50 plants. Why wouldn't you? There's no shortage of people who want your pot to sell or to give away or whatever. So it's one of these like unlimited resources. Even if everybody in Ontario grows pot, it will have value. And it should be grown by everybody. It would immediately increase the amount of revenue that is generated in this province in the space of those 5 legal months. It'll be staggering between the actual cultivation, the sale of it, the tourism that would result from it, all the ancillary industries, and quite likely, I would dare say, to some detriment to some industry, whether you'd have a reduction in the alcohol consumption typically consumed throughout a summer. I would say you'll probably see less car accidents, and I would say you'd have less young people acting foolishly, because one thing about marijuana and young people is if you have some degree of anxiety, you won't tend to do something, right? You're more attenuated to risk. And so people on marijuana typically don't take risky behavior. They're not, you don't actually see a lot of people outside of the so-called claims by police that people in cars have marijuana in their system, but generally marijuana people, they don't get sick. They don't have accidents. There's a lot of reasons why marijuana is popular. It's just not some mythology we all call it. 3 to 4 million people use marijuana for really useful reasons. Even now, I'm quite high. This was very good marijuana, and I am enjoying this interview. And so I'm thinking, well, even this is different because I have never ever been high during a media interview in my life. I make a point to always be completely straight because you have a time elasticity situation happening when you smoke pot. But incredibly enough, you're still around me. So I notice it hasn't influenced me. It hasn't influenced this interview, whereas normally I think, okay, they need something in 20 seconds or less. Got to be real anal for that, so you start cutting off every bit and get right down to the raw components. That's what I'm used to. I'm not used to people actually encouraging me to speak at any length.
We want to hear what you have to say.
Well, I think Ontario has to consider the possibilities. It's going to be a monumental change. If people embrace this all at once, if you have some people saying, no, we're going to resist this change over the summer, we're still going to be a pain in the ass and trying to harass people that are smoking marijuana and pretend it's the old days. The old days are gone. They don't exist. This law should have never happened. 1 million Canadians have criminal records and they want their life back. Most of them can't travel to the United States. If you have any life at all in the United States, you can't go. Those are 1 million Canadians can't go to the United States. That's got to end. And people who worry about what will the United States do, the United States will learn from us. That's what happens when you're an enlightened community versus a dark community. Their people will see, boy, it sure would be nice to be like Toronto. It sure would be nice to be like Canada or Ontario. And that's a feeling I'm proud of. I like it when other countries envy what we've got, right? Because we work hard for it.
Any more of these protests?
Well, if I hear that the police are taking away people's pot, yes. But as far as I know, there's already going to be a number of coffee shops opening up in the next few days and weeks. In Toronto. There'll be a lot of them, and you'll hear them. You'll hear about them because there's no need for them to remain secret. Nobody is committing a criminal act.
And you had no fear having the marijuana today, handing out the cigarettes. You had no fear at all.
Well, and that's distribution too. Now, of course, they could also issue a charge at a later date. I understand very well how the law works. But even that would be a betrayal of what the courts are clearly saying is the law. And I think we should be able to see this experiment through for 5 months. There is no way the people of Ontario will think this is worse if everybody embraces it. And that's what a lot of people are afraid of. What if this works? That means every other place that practices the punishment mode is wrong. That this works better than all those other dark states where people are rounded up and people are terrorized. I was at Idea City speaking about a man named Douglas Lamar Gray who was serving life without parole for buying 1 pound of marijuana in Alabama, and a cop sold it to him like it was a government agent. And I mean, I distributed 20 pounds of marijuana at the Toker's Bowl last month in Vancouver. And I know a fellow named Michael Patriquin in Nova Scotia who's serving 6 years for merely selling and growing 4.5 kilograms of marijuana, and he's got an exemption. He's all crippled up. So bad, dark things are still happening in Canada, and if this law is accepted by people here, we'll take a look at those kind of cruelties and change everything so we can become obviously the most enlightened, humane, and attractive destination for people to come where they can enjoy an environment that would allow such tolerance. But I would say advancement and enlightenment. That's not just tolerant. If everybody gets together and decides, well, how are we going to do this now in the new paradigm?
You deliberately hand them out to challenge them apart from the smoking?
Oh, well, first of all, I have no fear. I've spoken to all the lawyers involved with this case. They absolutely assure me this is the law of the land. The land right now, though, is limited to Ontario because these are binding on Ontario courts and Ontario Attorney Generals.
If I'm talking about what you did today.
Well, what we did today is we just simply exercised what's lawfully ours to do without any interference thus far from the police. And that's, of course, what I hope is the norm. I hope everybody in Ontario can benefit by the same courtesy the police have extended to me in honoring the law as it is in Ontario. I hope they honor it for everybody else, and that would, I think, be very attractive for the police. I think that would take away all the resentment that a whole generation of people have towards the police as enforcers of this really punitive and unnecessary law. It's gone on for 35 years, and every generation in the has experienced this kind of punishment.
Are you surprised so many people showed up early for this demonstration?
I wasn't aware that they were here. I was here at 4:05, so okay. So I was here at 4:05. It seemed like a nice, healthy crowd, and but there'll be lots of crowds because you can smoke in any park. people can have marijuana festivals in any Toronto park at any time at all this summer. And I think you're going to find that a common occurrence.
What do you say to the people?
And people have to adapt to that in the way we think about that. Well, rather than try and ban that or have 50 cops there, because why would you need police? We have a right to be free of harassment now because we're not doing anything illegal. So when the cops have 50 people, I went to a rally in Peterborough years ago, and there were more cops than there were participants in the rally. You can't do that anymore. That'll be unlawful harassment. To have more than 1 or 2 police officers for the safety of the general public only, since they can't arrest you for in any way using marijuana, there's no need for all these police at rallies anymore. So people will be able to hold hemp fests and whatever they want in any Toronto park. What they will need is a license from the Public Utilities.
What's your last name?
Who brought the snacks today?
My name's Mark Emmer. I'm the publisher of Cannabis Culture magazine and the owner of Hot Television on the internet. And I'm the world's largest marijuana seed seller and the president of the BC Marijuana Park.
Who brought the snacks today?
I brought them there. They're a grown in Vancouver variety, a blueberry crossed with white rhino.
And I hear they're
it's very
fabulous.
powerful. And it's very clean. For example, it was grown to very high standards. It was flushed with water in its last 21 days of life, and it's been cured for about 3 months. It'll smoke like a dream. It offers the least amount of irritation to the throat. Now, that'll only really happen in a legal environment. I get that pot, but I pay 25% more than the market price to make sure he spends the extra 2 weeks, you see. And that can't happen in the illegal market where everybody's growing in the fastest strains they can, using whatever they can, and sometimes putting chemicals on. In a legal, regulated market, you could prohibit that from being sold if something had dangerous sprays on it. Because you could say that comes under the Ministry of the Environment or the Ministry of Health, and that's a safety concern that can be regulated. So everything that people ever thought was wrong, from growing in your home, which now the government can make you get a safety certificate on your grow op. It can order PSC and GST to be collected on any sold. I would speculate that it's very legal to sell because it's not illegal for man to have it or to give it or for you to possess it. So it's right out of that law. So all these things will have to be thought of.
As you understand it now,